Welcome back, everyone. Another quick update today for you. So, been really working on trying to figure out placement and routing for all of the Coyote wiring harness components that need to go in the car, and been focused on the main vehicle harness primarily, which has a component here that's called the power distribution box or block, which contains a bunch of relays and fuses. And then that harness, you'll see, routes around and has to come into the PCM on the vehicle. You can see vehicle, then the engine harness, and then the transmission harness. So that's got to come in there. And then the main harness on the engine itself, we've got this big guy here. Is going to have to, pull back, come around, and then rotate in. And actually, this is going to be oriented in the direction with the wires coming out of the top of the plug. And you'll understand that in a little bit when I talk about it. And then there's an inside the car component that's part of the vehicle harness that I've been trying to figure out. Most people will bring this in through the firewall, generally right around in this area where this branch comes off, and then they'll route that inside along the dash and then down into the foot box, and that contains the clutch position safety switch plug. There's an accelerator position plug that gets mounted onto the accelerator pedal that you can't see down there, and then there's the OBD data link. And these wires are for the mill, or the check engine light, essentially, for the Coyote, which is this light here. And then there's this connection here that I'm going to actually remove this plug. There's 3 wires in here that I need to connect to some of the other wires in this bundle that are for the start motor request wire, an ignition, wake up or initialization wire, and then there's fuel pump wire that has to go up into the fuse block that's back up under here, and then there's a tack wire that I'll have to run back out into the engine compartment. And that'll get tied into one of the coils on the back of the engine, or towards this corner of the engine over here. So, with the really limited amount of space, getting these plugs to go in where I want them has been a challenge. So you saw on the engine harness, I have basically the wires coming out of the plug, and it orients with those going in an upward position. And that's going to come off of the engine right in this area and come over and connect to this plug. So it's going to be oriented with the wires coming up and going out this way, and not going back down through here. I got to leave room down below here for the air conditioning lines, the heater hoses that get connected back over here. They come out and have to come up and around into the heater control. And then the rest of the AC lines have to come back through this very limited space. So I was, trying to avoid running anything in here other than the one plug. I think I'm going to just have to pull up through this panel that'll be on here, and that'll be here. This one will actually be positioned where the wires come down on the outside, and that gets routed back down. It can go down underneath here and gets wrapped around the engine. That's for the transmission harness that will have the O2 sensors on it, which is this harness right here. So it's got a connection to the vehicle harness, and then it's got the 2 plugs for the left and right O2 sensors. Let's see. So to figure out how I was going to do this, when I flipped the computer into the proper orientation to allow the main engine harness to have the wires coming out and pointed up, so they're not going down into this panel, that meant all the other ones had to go that way too. So everything would have been basically mounted like this with this big, harness coming up out of the top. That is until I realized this little dust cover that you see essentially on the back of this plug. This thing unclips on the two sides, and you can actually rotate just this dust cover 180 degrees, and then when you do that, you'll flip the wires coming off of the back, which are just loosely in here on the plug. They'll come off and go the other direction. So I did that on these two smaller plugs, so they'll mount here and there, and then the main engine plug that goes in here will mount this way with that large harness still kind of going right over to the engine. So that's been fun to get to the point where I wanted to pull all this stuff into the car. The panel that covers the top of the footbox here is a removable panel, so I didn't want to just drill a hole in it and run a grommet into it. Otherwise I would have this harness that's always attached to the panel and not be able to do anything with it. So I've come up with a concept where I've made this small panel here that the grommet will go through. I'm going to essentially remove a slot out of this top panel. This piece will fit into that area, and you'll see this little section on the back that I've made that will replicate essentially the lip that's on this panel. So if you can imagine that sitting level, this level, that will help keep that all in the same place essentially here. So when I cut it out, this will fit with notches out of this lip, and then cut back underneath, notches on this back lip, and then cut back underneath where this will cover it. This panel will get attached with a couple of screws with some nutserts and probably some kind of just a thin rubber gasket or something, just to keep water out. But that's the idea. And then so that way I can basically slide this panel when it's time into place. You can imagine it's over further. I can't do that with the wire there right now. And this will pop up through there. Then the grommet will go through this small bracket into the footbox. So then when I want to remove this panel in the future, I can take the nutserts or the screws out here, and there'll be probably 4 nutserts in this. Pop that out, and I'll be able to slide that panel out to get access to all the brake master cylinders and clutch master cylinder and all that nasty business in there, access to the top of the fuse block if I ever need it. But that's the idea. So anyway, thought you'd all like to know where I'm at. I still am, just kind of playing with where everything's going to fit, but think I'm making progress, and I'll let you know when I make any more updates to the car that are worth making a video of. That's all I got for today. Thanks, and have a great 4th of July this weekend. America 250, go USA. Talk to you later.